Hi everyone, I'm Kent Louie, science teacher and talking head, talking about science education and broadcasting from beautiful Vancouver, Canada. This is episode 104, and it's early in the school year, and it's time once again to explain this proficiency scale, which I think is the most confusing proficiency scale of all time to parents, students, and teachers. And we use this proficiency scale for standards-based grading. And what makes it confusing is that each level of proficiency differs by only one word. For example, emerging has an initial understanding, someone who's developing has a partial understanding, someone who's proficient has a complete understanding. But what is the difference between partial and initial, or between complete and sophisticated? Right? That's all confusing. So to explain this scale, I'm going to borrow an analogy my colleague developed about driving. Shout out to Vincent Chan and Roberta Samra for this analogy, of course. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some fun details my students and I came up with to help with the analogy. But before I continue, handouts for this episode are available at realsciencechallenge.com/EP104. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. So, one way my department has tried to explain the difference between emerging, developing, proficient, and extending is by using the analogy of driving. So for example, someone who's emerging as driving is someone who's currently studying for the written exam. Someone who's developing is just getting behind the wheel and still learning how to drive. Someone who's proficient has passed the exam, and so on and so forth. But, driving is kind of a complicated skill. So instead of focusing on driving as a whole, with my students, I said, let's focus on parking, the skill of parking as a learning driver. Okay? So as an emerging driver who has a basic understanding of driving, a student who is emerging is one who knows the rules of parking. All right? So they know kind of like the minimum distance from a stop sign. They know how far they should park from a fire hydrant, okay? This is all head knowledge. They have no practical experience yet, all right? A developing driver, developing in parking, of course, has a partial understanding of parking. They would have written their exam and passed it, and now they're starting to learn how to park. And so maybe they know how to park like this. They know how to pull into a parking spot, or perhaps they know how to back into a parking spot. These are the easiest forms of parking, right? They haven't mastered all of it, certainly not parallel parking, which is like way up there on the parking scale. So that's what it means to be a proficient driver. Someone who can do all these forms of parking. They can pull in, they can back in, they can parallel park, they can do this thing. They have a complete understanding of what it means to park a car. So what does it mean to be advanced or extending at parking, to have a sophisticated understanding of parking? This is the question I posed to my students. And this is what they said. They said, well, someone who has a sophisticated understanding of parking, who's extending, advanced at it, can park on the right side, like normal, right? Or they could park on the other side, the left side. Sometimes we have this when we're going down a one-way street. We got to park on the other side and parallel park our car. That's really hard because you got to figure out the angles and it's all different. Yeah, someone who's extending at parking, at parallel parking can do that. Someone who's extending at parallel parking could also park on a hill, right? Because, parking on a hill is hard because sometimes the car rolls forward or backwards, depending if you're parking downhill or uphill. And let's not forget, when you park uphill or downhill, you got to turn those wheels to face the curb, right? So that's an added detail. And that's what it means to be advanced at parallel parking, to be advanced at parking. So the difference between an advanced student and a proficient one is that an advanced one can apply their understanding towards many different contexts. Some of them they may not have experienced directly, yet they're still able to apply that knowledge and figure it out. Whereas a proficient student can apply their understanding very well to the context they've had a lot of practice in, but they have difficulty going beyond that. And that's okay, because with enough practice, a proficient learner can become an advanced one, just like a proficient driver can become an advanced one as well. That's it for this episode. Please smash the like button or subscribe button, or check out our website. Handouts, once again, are at realsciencechallenge.com/EP104. Thanks for watching, and let's talk science education again soon.